That's what this is. It's a financial tsunami. And I remember seeing the images and then thinking inside my mind, everybody's running for high ground. But what if somebody were to run towards the water? And if you were to do that, you'd have to have the biggest, longest, baddest surfboard. And what if this wave that was coming, you were somehow able to ride this and ride it like it's never been ridden before? And that was a whole different approach to the pool industry.
This is Travis Wilson with Desert Island Pools out of Mesa, Arizona, and you're listening to the Pool Chasers podcast.
Welcome to your go-to podcast for the pool and spa industry. My name is Tyler Rasmussen.
And my name is Greg Villafania. And this is the Pool Chasers podcast.
Hey, Pool Chasers. Thank you for joining us today in episode 48 of the Pool Chasers podcast. Our mission is to help educate and inspire in the form of a podcast.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Rich. How was the flight in from California?
Yeah, it was great. 5-hour delay and change, but it worked, and I'm glad to be here. And
oh, man. And you're in good spirits.
Oh, yeah. Well rested and ready to do this.
Very good. So you've decided to support the podcast being a Platinum Patreon member, and just want to say thank you so much for your support to the podcast. It really means a lot to us, and it helps us push out these episodes every Monday. And if you see over here, we got your nice picture of you and your team. I don't know how old that picture is, but right under the Patrons banner. Very cool. So thank you very much once again.
It's awesome. Well, thank you. I mean, it was an easy decision. I mean, you guys, I've started listening to you guys within the last 3-4 months. I felt like hearing you guys and all the people you're interviewing, it's like having a private, high-end seminar right inside your ears. And I was like, wow. And then it's just really evident what you guys are doing and the direction you guys are going. And I figured I got to support this.
Wow.
This is just like a no-brainer.
That is really cool of you to say that. And we always talk about how it really is, if you were at a pool show and you saw, a bunch of builders maybe having a private conversation that that you couldn't get into, now that conversation is organized and it's here at this table.
Yeah.
And whoever is in the industry and knows how to download, the podcast gets to be a part of it now. It's really cool and special.
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to download. You Google it and boom, there it is.
Right.
So you guys are the first podcast I've ever heard, and yeah, you guys got the right stuff.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
So you have an incredible story, and you've really turned your business around in California. We're going to jump into all that. But maybe can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and how you, grew up and got introduced to the pool industry?
Yeah, my family is of a pool building. My father is a pool builder since the late 70s, and he worked for a company called Catalina Pools in the San Fernando Valley, California. And then after a few years of that, went on his own and started American Pool and Spa Builders. And then when everything was booming, I mean, the 80s were a great time to be in business and be in the pool business because everybody was putting one in, it seemed like. And I started when I was 13 with him. And it was basically a real easy decision because the option was I'm either going to go to summer camp, which was really daycare with my 2 younger brothers, or I was going to go to work. And there was no way I was going to daycare. So I'd gotten the trucks and went with the crew, and they started digging gas lines for pool heaters. And those were pretty intense.
Yeah. So were you digging trenches or what?
Oh, yeah. These trenches were, 22 to 24 inches deep. They were 10 inches wide. And when I stood in them, I mean, they went past my knees. So if you lost your balance, it was a really hard fall. But I just really learned how to work very, very hard and learned how to grind at that point in that summer more so than I've ever had in my life. These are 10-hour days in the heat. And, it had to get done, and we did it.
Wow. What else did you do on the job sites?
That first summer, all I was allowed to do was dig ditches.
That's where you start, huh?
Yeah. And it's like, well, if he can do that, then he can do everything else. But if he can't dig a ditch, what good is he? And it was that mentality of, let's see what he's made of, and it's tough to put a kid out there in the field, and most kids wouldn't do that. So,
right.
And then as the summers went along, I started doing, plumbing. So now I get to put the pipes in those trenches. And that was exciting. Get to figure out how, all this works and get that full understanding of a hydraulic system on a pool. And I get to see the pools being built from scratch. The first day of excavation, steel, plumbing, gunite, the masonry, tile, and the plaster. Then after a few summers, it was a lot easier to be around pools once they had water in them. I figured that out. And we had a guy named Rick Watts who worked for my father, and he was, like the pool guru of pool service, water chemistry. And he taught me everything he knows. And pretty much been doing it ever since.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a really cool story.
Yeah.
What was it like just being around your father while he's a pool builder? And I mean, did he just, you watched him grind and work really hard? Was that, what really kind of pushed you in seeing all that growing up?
Well, yeah, because what, fathers, in my opinion, what they do is, they teach their sons, their daughters as well. And I think a great father is going to show you by example, by doing, but also by not doing. So if you're, really paying attention to your fathers, you're going to pick up their strengths and try not to pick up their weaknesses. When he was doing what he was doing, these were 80 plus hour weeks, 100-hour weeks. This is just what a businessman needs to do. He's got a family. I'm the eldest of three, plus I have a stepsister. It was a big household. So it was understandable that he needed to go out there and do what he needed to do to provide for the family. So I saw from that aspect, I figured that, being away from the family that much, that's not the best thing to do. And we would have loved to have had him more around than to have all the, toys or accoutrements of the hard work.
Yeah.
But the toys were fun. I mean, we got the, summers on the lake with the boat, ATV riding, all that good stuff. But it was just, you get to see what he's really made of as far as business savvy. He's the best salesman in the world, I guess, next to my uncle, his brother. They've always been a duo as far as sales. Really watching them both because they worked together as well back then. And seeing how they interact with customers and seeing how the whole process that they made was really, really smooth. And a lot of people, when they're building pools, they go into this blindly and they have no idea what they're getting into. And nobody really tells them what they're getting into, except both my father and uncle would take the time to explain to them, hey, listen, this is what we're doing here. We're opening up a big hole in your backyard and things are going to happen and things are going to go good and things are going to go not so good. And this is what we do when they don't go so good. So everybody had a complete expectation of what they're getting into. So when things would go awry, it would be normal because we talked about this, and now we're going to take these steps and we're going to, move forward. So I got to see that at a real young age, and that was really beneficial because just in business and letting people know up front and understanding their expectations, but at the same time, making sure they understand your expectations and knowing that it's a two-way street was huge. So as a kid, I got to see that and then have that backed up by the hard work.
Sure. And, before we started recording, you were telling us a few stories about your father and uncle. It was really interesting, all the different values and the level of honesty that they had. I know this isn't a question, but what is kind of their story? Where did they grow up? And I'm always curious when I hear people with those kinds of values and that high level of honesty, I'm always a little bit curious as to where did you get that from?
Well, my father's side of the family were Italian and Puerto Rican, and they were born in New York. So you have a lot of New York influence. And I think everybody on that side of the family, well, both sides, my mom and my father's, are very hard workers. My mom worked as an office manager and managed an entire, office and staff. And she was usually always second or third in command from the top position. Basically, she always had to do what a man had to do and somehow do it better so she can have that position. So both sides of my family really have this hard work ethic, that you're just going to get it done and you're going to do it right and you're not going to take shortcuts. And so the honesty in the work itself, came from all that. And my grandmother raised my father and uncle as a single parent. So seeing that and understanding that, it was hard work for a woman in the early 60s to come from Puerto Rico to Los Angeles and take on everything that she needed to take on to support a family, but also raise these two guys, that was incredible. And that was instilled in myself and my two younger brothers as we were growing up as well. So the hard work, we were just never afraid of it. It was part of our DNA. Like I said, in the work itself, the honesty comes from the actual work and the result of that work.
Right.
And the reputation was built on that. And most people in this industry back then, looking for shortcuts, looking to do things, make an extra few bucks. And with our family business, it was, hey, listen, this is what we do. This is how we do it. This is our process. And this is what's available to you if you want this. And we were never the cheapest. And we may not have been the most expensive, but we always delivered on quality. We always made sure the customer understood that. And customers really responded well to that. So,
yeah. You mentioned your grandma. That she's kind of like the rock of the family, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because with her, this was all possible on that side of the family. It was a big, big move to come here from Puerto Rico as a single parent and raise two kids, in the San Fernando Valley, California. She had a really good run in Puerto Rico. She was kind of a celebrity and did a lot of different game shows.
Oh, really?
So she was she was basically the Vanna White of Puerto Rico.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, because Puerto Rico would like to copy a lot of what we would do in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
She was fortunate enough to be in that position, so they made her like the local celebrity.
Wow.
So they had like their own version of Wheel of Fortune?
Yeah. And other things as well. And
that's cool.
She was still young, but in Hollywood, she was, I guess, a little too old. It wasn't a 22-year-old when she came here, and she had two kids. So then she, instead of going into the Hollywood-type movies, commercials, all that, like she did in Puerto Rico, she learned accounting all of a sudden and bookkeeping. And so she went to work for A&R Records. And that was an amazing thing because the few times I get to go down there when she was working, I got to meet Gene Simmons and Paul from Kiss and a few other guys. And she was in charge of basically cutting their checks, their advance checks. And these were big checks back then.
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
Depending on what year this is, that was like every kid's dream.
Yeah. Well, this is 1978. Yeah. And I was 5. Yeah, it was just a whole different environment, a whole different environment. The things that happened down there were insane.
Yeah.
But again, seeing her at a very, very young age, working that hard, that was incredible. At 5 years old, I'm like, wow, that's my grandmother. She's talking to these like rock stars and they're demanding what they want, but she's the one cutting the check.
Right.
And so they talked a little nicer to her. And just watching her, hold her post and hold her command and just, be respectful to them, but make sure they were respectful towards her. I mean, that was huge. A 5-year-old kid saying that, and then coming home and all that hard work just transcended into us.
Sure.
This episode of the Pool Chasers podcast is brought to you by Jobber. Jobber is your business's command center. The easy-to-use app powers your sales, operations, customer service all in one place. If you want to check them out, go to getjobber.com/poolchasers to receive 20% off your first 6 months.
So we're also excited. Jobber and Dirt Monkey University have partnered to bring a 2-day, one-of-a-kind live event to Atlanta, Georgia, August 23rd and 24th. And it's aimed at entrepreneurs who recognize that reaching your maximum potential requires 360 degrees of total commitment.
So you may ask yourself, what is this exactly? Well, it's a 2-day event to create a complete blueprint for your future. That's the mission of Impact Live. Immerse live training that will give you specific tools and advice to massively grow your service business and your personal life.
And this is not your typical business seminar. Impact Live will be looking at every area of an entrepreneur's life, inside and outside of their business, and peeling away layers to reveal their full potential and their most ambitious goals.
So, we all really like to be motivated, and there's an incredible lineup of speakers. So that includes industry experts, different types of motivational speakers, business coaches, and authors ready to give you the tools you need to massively grow your business in a meaningful way. When you attend Impact Live, you will walk away with a complete blueprint for your future.
So if you want to find out more and buy tickets, you can go to goimpactlive.com. Look up #GoImpactLive. There's a ton of stuff on social media going on right now. And we'll say this again. It's in Atlanta, Georgia, this August 23rd and 24th. Hope to see you guys there. So how did your father and uncle get into the pool business? I'm really curious how they even stumbled upon that.
That's a good story. So if you ask my uncle, he started the whole thing. That's his take. He worked for a company called Riviera Spas, a hot tub manufacturer. And these two guys, they could sell anything to anyone. So he was doing that, and he had a really good run at that. And what my father was doing at the time in the late 70s with my uncles, they were selling advertising. Because back in the day, we used to have these things called yellow pages.
Oh, yeah.
So they would go in, and basically the whole get was to get like the dollar bill size ad. Like if you didn't get that, it wasn't even considered a sell. And these were really, really hard times for sales guys, because what they would do is these companies that employed them, they'd have these meetings weekly. And they had these sales kit. Each guy had a big briefcase. And when you go into these Monday morning meetings, they would tell these stories that everybody had to check in their sales kit briefcase. And you'd have this 1 hour meeting or so. And at the end, you didn't know if you were checking out with that briefcase, because they would, inevitably 2 or 3 would get cut. And then they'd bring new people in. So it was a really cutthroat type situation. So it's kind of like that movie, Glengarry Glen Ross. I always looked at it that way. They were always having these high sales. They would sell real easily. So one day my father went to see the owner of Catalina Pools. He sold him, this big ad. And it was basically on the wholesale of, well, this is what the other guys are going to do. Don't you want to be positioned? And don't you want to have the leverage? And that was the concept of positioning and leverage. I learned that from my dad and uncle as well. The guy was so impressed with him, and he says, you know what, I'm going to take this big ad, and you know what, why don't you call right now and cancel your employment with them, and why don't you come sell pools for me? And he did. So He became a pool sales guy. He did really, really well at it. It was just another form of selling. And then once he got into the selling of it and it was going smooth, he brought in my uncle. And now you had two guys, same family, working for this company. And he did phenomenal. And it was right there on Reseda Boulevard in the valley, heart of the valley. And my uncle loved shooting pool, playing pool. And there's a pool hall down the street. So he'd hang out there, wait for the leads to come in. Secretaries would either call or run down there and give it to him. And when he wasn't selling pools, he was playing pool. And they did that.
Awesome.
Yeah, they did that for a couple of years. And then my dad realized, we can do this on our own. And so he started his own company. Yeah, he made a name for himself really big, real fast. And he was offering things that just other companies weren't offering. And it was more of a quality product. It was a process of, we don't have to do 300 pools a year. We can do 100. We can do 100 pools, but there'll be more quality. So it went from there. When he started that business, I was around 11 or 12. And then by the time I hit 13, I was in it for the summers.
Nice. That's a really cool story. So that's your introduction into getting your start, because you started pretty young, right? When did you finally decide to kind of go out on your own? I mean, did you work for another service company? Did you learn to service pools?
No, in our family and in that time, there was no working for other pool companies.
Oh man, entrepreneurs.
No, this was
right off the start.
this was everybody else who owned a pool company was like the worst person in the world. They were just like, you don't associate with these people. They're competitors. And that's it. That's all I knew, is that they were just competitors. And I thought, wow, okay, that makes sense. So it's a family business. You stick with the family. You're not going to go outside of the family. And there was no reason for that. So at 18, I graduated high school June 23rd, 1991. And I walked across the stage at 11:30. And got in my car and was at my first pool at 11 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and signed up my first customer, the Rasmussens. My father built the pool, and I did the startup and got the service, and the rest is history.
Nice.
So, I mean, all the talk about family, you've kind of mentioned to me that your biggest success story is your son, and you had him at a pretty early age, right? You want to talk about kind of why you're so proud of that?
Yeah. My father had me when he was 20. And, growing up, it was real clear that, we weren't mistakes, my brothers and I, but having kids at a young of an age is a mistake. So we were kind of always told that, wait to have kids later on. It's a lot easier. And your kids will benefit from it. It won't be so hard on, you or them. And that's understandable, So at 20, 21, I didn't listen. And and my son Chance was born, and it was a game changer. It was amazing. It was like, okay, I've been doing this thing for 3 years now with the pools, and it's not taken off because everybody lied to me, I guess, when they said that, it takes 3 years before a business can really, grow and be profitable. It turns out it's 10. And I just figured, well, I'm going to do this. This is what I want to do. And now he's dependent on me. So I'm going to make this happen. And I'm never going to have him feel or think that he was a mistake. What did even having him at this age was a mistake. And I'm not going to look at it that way. And this kid's a miracle. Right. And I'm going to, embrace him. And he's going to never want for anything. He's going to be taken care of.
And do you think having a kid at such an early age kind of pushed you to work harder and have just more of a drive, I guess, in making things happen?
Yeah, absolutely. It really gave me the whole notion that, believing in yourself and the whole idea that there's not a safety net in life. You can have plans in life and you can try and live that way, but, things happen, good, bad, or indifferent. If you really want something and you really want to, go for it, there's always that voice inside you that says, yeah, you can do this. I
and I think it's hard. I don't think just everybody should have kids, but, when your kids are at an early age, they see their parents getting through tough times and you prevail. It makes them stronger as well. Because if you can look back and like, man, I remember when things were rough, didn't have much money, but, parents were always smiling. We made the best of the situation. And, as time goes on, you become more successful and you run a profitable business. Your kids look at things a little bit, differently.
Yeah. I mean, the idea of, hey, are you a good parent? Are you a good father or not? The only person that can tell you that is your kid.
Yeah.
And, they can tell you that when they're kids because that's what kids say. But he's going to turn 25 next week. And,
oh, nice.
He tells me I'm a good father at 25. That's
pretty good.
I can believe that.
Yeah.
Because you can also tell me the opposite. And it's a good feeling. He's a great kid.
Yeah. It was very cool. I mean, we both had kids at younger age, not that young, but close. I think, it definitely changes your whole entire mindset because you got somebody else depending on you. And, you definitely want to, you have that, I got to be successful now mentality before you might kind of slack off a little bit, because you're just taking care of yourself. But we both have 3 other mouths to feed now. It's kind of, all right, yeah, get you that little push that you need to really start looking at everything from a different perspective.
I think you teach them differently when they're young. You know what I mean? My thing always with my girls is, want to have fun and enjoy life, but don't ever forget to focus. Whatever you love doing, focus. If you love it, it shouldn't be that difficult to focus, but just zone in on what you're trying to do. Why not try to be the best at it? Why not try to be good at it? You can really surprise yourself. Being conscious of, they tell you like, what, like, give me my space. Like, it's not that serious. Like, okay, it's just fun, right? Okay. I thought we were taking this more serious, but, paying close attention. That's what you got to do. Oh, buddy, we got a special announcement here.
Yes, we do.
So our friends at Jandy are crushing it with their push to quit the internet.
Crushing it.
We recently made a special trip to San Diego to see their new facility, which is amazing. But most importantly, to get an update on their progress with catching online violators. We had the opportunity of sitting in on their enforcement meeting, and let me tell you, this was taken a lot more seriously than we thought it would. They showed us a chart of violations and, their progress from January till now. They're at 82% attainment of compliance, meaning from day one when they started policing and enforcing to today, they have reduced the number of Jandy violations online by 82%.
It's simple. The customer wants to go online and save a few dollars by purchasing their equipment online. This is something that we've all gone through as service professionals, and Jandy's heard the cry. They've taken a stand and they've supported our industry. They understand that only a qualified pool professional should work around electrical, gas, and hydraulic connections. I mean, have you even seen a customer work with that kind of stuff?
I have, and it's not pretty.
Definitely not pretty. Jandy's warranty will not cover any Jandy equipment that is not purchased, installed, and or serviced by a pool professional. This will save you guys time and money by allowing you to avoid those awkward conversations with your customer and let you focus on the part of the business that you do best. If you want to find out more details, listen to episode 31 of the podcast or go to jandy.com/builtstrong. That's jandy.com/builtstrong.
So really want to talk about, really kind of getting into the industry and the pool service business. Can you talk with us a little bit about maybe some of those struggles and maybe try not to say failures, but, kind of, what would you have done differently if you could go back in the beginning?
Everybody could sit here and figure out what they could have done differently as far as business, strategies and things like that. But in all honesty, I'm real happy where I'm at and really grateful and appreciative of where I'm at. And it's not all done by myself. There's been a lot of people along the way that have helped me, my family, people outside my family. All in all, I think that everything that has happened for a reason. I'm real receptive to that. And I don't have too many regrets. Obviously, I wish I could have my son maybe at a later age, but at the same time, I would think that would give me more time with him as he was growing up, but maybe not necessarily, and him and I have a tight relationship. So that maybe not be that big of a regret as I thought. But business is fun. Yeah. I mean, I learned, you hear the notions, you got to love what you do and this and that, but I was able to hear in all places in church one day that it's not just that you got to love what you do, you got to love the people that you do it for. I thought, wow, yeah, that's profound. That's the yin and yang, that's the other part. So I just started realizing, getting clients that I actually like to make this person happy. I actually like working with this person. This person's really receptive to what value I'm offering them. It's working out real well. So we go more towards those types of people.
Very good.
You mentioned to us earlier you kind of gravitated towards the chemistry and service side, and you started working on your grandma's pool, right? Is that how you kind of got your introduction into the pool service?
Yeah. So this is a pool in Canoga Park. It's a 20 by 40 pool. It is the worst pool in the history of pools by far. It had a perpetual leak. I'm sure it's still leaking to this day. It had an old bronze pump, which I don't even know what the horsepower was, but it wasn't good, and a very, very small filter. And then she hated to run it, so she'd run it for a couple hours a day at max. And that's how I learned the pools and how to maintain it, was, watching her. And then in the late 80s, she moved to Vegas. And then we had the house for about 3-4 years after that. My uncle moved in, and then he would say, okay, so I want you here every Saturday. You're going to be the pool guy. I want you to also be the lawn guy. It's all right. And I would do that. And this is my grandmother's house, and this is my family house. And this is a house I was fondly of and pretty much born and raised in. So, no problem. So I did a real good job. And at the end of the Saturday, he slipped me a C note. It's like, wow, all right, that's really awesome. So I came back the next Saturday, and I spent about 4 or 5 hours and made sure everything was spotless. I mean, everything was perfect. The pool shines. I mean, everything's, right on. He gives me another C note. I'm thinking, okay, maybe he's giving me a couple months in advance, paying the things up front. But by the third Saturday, I got another $100 bill, and I realized, no, this is what he's doing. He's paying me $100 a week to do this pool because, in the yard, he wants everything the way he wants it. And I got no problem with that because that's the way I want to do it. And the pool looked great, and the lawn was perfect up until maybe the middle of that summer when on a long conversation on the phone with my grandma, I told her, hey, I got to get off the phone with you because you're cutting into my time here, and I'm about to get a $100 bill here, and I got to get off the phone. And she flipped out. What do you mean $100? Hey, Uncle's giving me $100, and listen, I'm working here. You're cutting into that. Well, that didn't go good. So she didn't like the $100 deal and yelled at him. And then he got off the phone and says, hey, I can't pay you $100 anymore. I was like, well, why does she have to know about this? I mean,
Can't this just be a...
Yeah. I mean, this is between you and me. She's in Vegas. We're over here in Canoga Park. I mean, he's like, nah. I can't do that. It's like, well, what are you going to pay me? I'll give you $25. I was like, oh, wow. Well, that ain't good. So the idea was that a $100 bill back then, that's 30 years ago. It's still, $100 today is $100 back then almost. But our tank of gas was $20. So after getting paid on a weekly deal, I still had $80 left. You could take your friends out for a $20 bill and everyone could eat, you know. So it was pretty cool. So there was a correlation of doing hard work, honest work, good business, and getting a perceived value paid and getting that at a young age and realizing that was a direct line to having quality life. It was great. And I don't know if this happened for a reason, but I guess everything does happen for a reason, but it's kind of, like an experiment because, once he paid me $25, I mean, everything fell apart. I mean, the pool started looking bad. I didn't spend the time, and I didn't have the time to spend because at the end of that deal, after he gave me a $20 bill and a $5 bill, well, that $20 bill is going into the gas tank. I'm left with $5. So the whole idea, mentality of how hard you're going to work for that $5, I think it's just human nature. It's like, well, if you're not being paid, well, then why do the work? But, it was a family house and, I didn't want to get in trouble. So I did the work, but the pool turned green a few times and the grass, I missed a few Saturdays here and there. It was a great lesson for when going on my own, and especially to this day, that perceived value and valuing yourself and making sure you get that value from others is super important in business. Crucial, actually.
Yeah, it's a very good analogy to really kind of understand. I think even we talk about like having employees and getting them to do good quality work, like getting paid well to do that work is very important. It's a mentality thing. No matter how much you want to think that person's going to do a good job for $10, that's $10, it's
right.
Yes. I need that $10 as part of, my $100 at the end of the day or whatever. But I'm not going to, there's something mental about it when you go to that pool and you're like, man, this pool is trashed, covered, with leaves everywhere. Like I make $10, I make $10 on this. Like, get in there, get out, and you're not going to check the equipment. You're not going to go through the right proper steps to make sure everything's working properly. Probably not going to test correctly. You're just going to do real quick drops or real quick dip and that's it. And it's a whole other mentality on everything from the business owner to the person actually cleaning the pools. And it's a real cool analogy to think about. When you got the $100, like that was a big deal. And you got 25 and not so big of a deal.
And again, the $100 wasn't like I'm Rockefeller all of a sudden. It was just like you get to go out and do normal nice things that you would want to do on a Saturday and a Sunday.
But you also put in, you said 4 to 5 hours at that pool, cleaning it, doing the yard, doing that. That's.
Oh, I made sure he wanted for nothing. That was right. That was going to be 100% each time.
Exactly. I mean, you felt that value and you wanted to do good work for that value, and then chop it 75% down. It's not so important anymore.
Yeah, and it gave me a sense of pride in my work when I knew I was being paid and valued for that. I mean, the pride was there.
Right.
And then there's something in that equation that when you take all the money out, it's just, unfortunately, I think it's inevitable. You're going to get what you pay for. Yeah. But in this case, you got far less.
Well, we always talk about, there's perspective of that with the customers too. And everybody's always afraid to kind of talk about money in this industry, which is weird because that's why we all do it.
Right.
And it's difficult conversation, I think, for a lot of people. But when you think that way and you change your mentality that way, I'm not saying you're going to get $300 a pool every pool, because you're definitely in a higher end area than some people, but you can set those prices. We'll get into a lot more about price matrix and different stuff, but you can set a higher rate and higher mentality, higher confidence, be a certain way with those customers, go in there a certain way and present yourself in a way that, hey, like we give this good quality service and this is what I'm worth. And this is why. And if you explain that to people, even if you explain the part about, I pay my guys well, because if I don't pay them well, they're not going to do a good job.
Right.
They need to see your pool as an accomplishment, not just another pool. You need to see it as value.
Yeah. I mean, in anybody's work, no matter what you're doing, if you're a bricklayer, pool service, a lawyer, a doctor, at the end of the day, you got to have purpose and meaningfulness in your work. If it's not meaningful, it doesn't make sense. It's not going to. That's going to show. That lack of meaningness is going to show in every type of situation when of all types of works. So meaningful and purposeness is important when you're doing a job.
Right. Tyler, you know what I saw today?
What'd you see today, Greg?
A husband and wife inside MPT looking to pick out some new tile for their new pool. And you know who was there to help them?
Who?
An MPT expert. And the process seemed to be going pretty smooth.
Well, yeah, I mean, MPT Design Center is the place to go for pool tile, pool finish, hardscapes, and outdoor kitchens. I mean, whether you're building a pool, remodeling it, or just dreaming about it, you can check out their website at mptpool.com to locate an MPT Design Center or showroom near you.
And for all you pool professionals, builders, designers, send your customers to MPT for professional design assistance and product samples they can take home. On the mptpool.com website, you'll also find a wealth of photographs to show what MPT products will look like when they're installed. Plus, you can download a copy of the MPT tile and pool finish catalogs or order a printed copy to be mailed to your home.
So download the MPT mobile app to select products, save favorites, and email them directly to your pool builder. And be sure to follow MPT Pool Products on Instagram and Facebook for the latest photos and product information. Well, let's jump more into Pure Swim, your company here. I've had a few conversations with you. I think you have a real kind of adapt or die type story, because you started the company, sold the accounts, and then have reinvented it to what it is today. Can you kind of share that with us and some of the reason behind doing that?
Yes. Well, in that same analogy with grandma's pool, it's real clear. It's either going to be a grind. That's what $25 a week was doing, or it's going to be something that's enjoyable and something that's going to be, again, meaningful and purposeful, and something at the end of the day I feel that there's a sense of pride, and I like doing this. And I think it's that black and white. So starting the business right out of high school and falling in line with everybody else out there and what everybody else is charging, and being competitive and starting and building a business based on competition, based on, well, this is my business, this is what people charge, this is what I got to do. It's sad just, even saying that out loud and realizing that that's what it was, but that's what it was and is for a lot of people. And one of the books I read early on was the Outliers, and the whole principle on that is, putting in 10,000 hours, getting your practice in, and then becoming great. And anybody that has become great has done the foundation and the groundwork. And then the whole idea is that you definitely do not want to compete within the herd. I mean, why would you? I mean, if people back then were charging $60 a month and you knew that that's not going to equate to anything. What expenses and what things cost, you're not going to make money on that. You're going to make maybe a wage if you're lucky, but you're not making money. You're not going to be a business. You're not going to be profitable. You started, and the big idea was, well, if they're charging 60, I'll charge 68.
Mm-hmm.
And that was like a little bit difficult because, you get some resistance to people like, well, why are you so much? And it's kind of funny because like, well, I'm $8 more, and then people would talk to you, and then all of a sudden the knowledge would come out, and then they would see, oh yeah, no, this guy definitely knows his stuff. And very early on, I took a lot of seminars, training from the very beginning. So they would see that, wow, yeah, you know what you're talking about. You're obviously intelligent about, your trade. And so there was perceived value. I understood that early on as well. And then people would, they'd pay. So then you start raising the prices and you realize, okay, so if I do this and if I create some type of matrix for pricing based on how long I'm going to be in a yard and how much a yard costs and gas and all that other stuff, you start coming up with your own little pricing modules. And then you realize, okay, so I got to be like $85. Now that's in the first 2 years I realized to go from 60 to 85. That was a huge percentage. And then all of a sudden on the third and fourth and fifth year, when I would tell people, it's $85 and give them the whole, this is what we do, this is what I do, this is how I do it. Every now and then someone would say, okay, so that's great. So you come by every Thursday, you're going to do the pool, and it's $85. You understand? So each Thursday, where do we leave the $85 check? Where does that go? And then I would look at them and say, oh, no. I come here every Thursday. It's $85 a month. Then they'd look at me like I'm crazy. Like, wait a minute, you're going to do everything you said you're going to do, and it's $85 a month? They were blown away. And then I would be blown away that they thought they'd pay me $85 a week.
Right.
But you thought real dumb, like at that point, huh? Like, oh,
yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
Just missed out on the freaking $85 a week.
Yeah. And I'm thinking, hey, nobody would do that.
Right.
But then, not too long ago, Uncle did that with Grandma's pool. And so, I figured, well, it's just a fluke. Then the next thing you know, it happened a few months later. Same thing. I figured, okay, wow, this is amazing. So I said to myself, okay, on the third person, I'll take them up on it. Well, it took a couple of years, but sure as everything. See, boom, $85 a week. I got that account, had it for 5 years. And that was a game changer because that brought me back to the beginnings of doing the Saturday pool service and yard for $100. And this guy, same thing, everything was flawless. So then I knew early on that there's definitely a way of doing this and there's a way of not doing this. And it seems like the greater for everybody around me is they're doing it the way you shouldn't be doing it. And then you start talking to guys and you realize, well, this pricing structure, this is 20, 25 years old. It hasn't changed. And it's just because of people being competitive, maybe recessions, maybe cheap labor coming into the area, whatever the reasons were. And people that were making or wanted to make more money, they were just doing more work. That didn't sound great at all. So slowly, this whole understanding, this whole process that I'm definitely undervalued and that people would pay more if they got more. They're not going to just pay you more because you asked for more. You definitely have to deliver. And it just became clear. I used to go into the pool supply houses, and you'd look across the counter, and inevitably they have this whole giant wall with all these colorful bottles and all these different chemicals. And then you start thinking, those things they're all dusty. No one's even buying that. It's chlorine and acid in a bucket of tabs. But those things are clarifiers, sequestering agents. Those things actually have purpose. And then, you'd want to put that in the water. And wow, look, the water looks amazing. I mean, we had a retail store for maybe a couple of years. Recession hit, and it hit hard in 89. And people started building pools. There just wasn't money for it. So the next idea was, let's go ahead and make a retail store, and we'll sell hot tubs. Since the yards are actually getting smaller too, that might be a good idea. Turns out that wasn't the best idea. The recession was hard in the late 80s and early 90s. But one of the best things that happened out of that was my brother Brian would also be working Saturdays. And this guy is kind of a genius. We thought he was kind of off, because, growing up with him, he was quiet and everything. And he's the guy that when we got the new Sony TV, he'd want to take the whole thing apart just to see if he can make it better than Sony. And, he's that guy. So one Saturday, this sales rep from BioGuard comes into the store and starts talking to Brian about, having a testing lab and having a Pentium 100 computer, which back then was a few grand, and a printer and whole state of the art, and a water station testing full water analysis. And the people can come into your store now, and they could actually bring a bottle, you could test it, and then they'll give you a whole printout on what they needed. And Brian says, yeah, that's a great idea. Brian's like 15 at the time. So the sales rep, no one else is around. It's hard times. This guy's doing, cold sales for the most part. And anyway, so he signed us up. And 2 Saturdays later, in comes the computers, the printers, the lab, all the beakers, all the product. My dad's like, what the hell is this? And Brian says, no, this is going to be great. This is going to be amazing. And it's going to be real profitable. Well, our average ticket back then for pool chemicals was somewhere between $30 and $40. So what Brian did is he would actually do the whole analysis, show the customer, here's all the parameters you need to adjust, and here's all the product that we have. He took it a step further. What he did was, hey, this is what you're going to do weekly. So you're going to stay on top of this. You can bring a sample in here every week, no charge. But what you really want to do, because the pricing on these chemicals, they weren't cheap. So he said, what we can do is we can do a bundle deal. We'll sell you the entire year up front. Instead of it being like around 900 to 1,000, we'll get it around 600 or 700. And people said, yeah. In a recession, they said, yeah, that makes sense. Let's do that. So the average sale from 30 to 40 was going to 600 to 700 on Brian's tickets alone.
Oh, wow.
So this BioGuard deal became like saving the family business type, deal.
Right.
And, it took off. Inevitably, I think maybe 1 out of 10 sales, you'd have a situation where maybe the husband comes back and he's coming in, doors flaring open. This guy's upset. And he says, hey, did you sell my wife $700 in chemicals? I got them right here. We want our money back. And we actually had on the receipt, all sales are final because they're chemicals.
Right.
And, that wouldn't happen that often. But I remember one story, one Saturday, my brother had 2 different people and he's selling both of them at the same time. He just did 2 water samples. Printouts were almost identical. And he's now going to do his bundle deal with 2 people simultaneously. And I'm watching him thinking, man, that is awesome. And this guy comes in, it's early Saturday morning, and I wanted to speak to the owner, how can you do this? And he had his wife that came in this previous Saturday with $700 in chemicals, and he wants a refund. So Brian at 15, maybe 16 the most, is now telling this guy all the reasons why he'd want to keep him. So he brought this guy into the fold with these other 2 women and started selling him on the stuff he bought. And he was good. He says, so I can bring a sample in every Saturday and you guys won't charge for that? Absolutely. He says, okay, that's every Saturday. Yeah, and I'll be here. Take care of you. So the guy walked out, and had a full understanding of what he bought. And then these 2 sales were made. And I'm watching this, I'm thinking, man, this guy's going to be pretty good. So we have this in our family. We just, good, clean business, honest business, and pride in your work. And
you guys are moving that needle too.
Oh, yeah, because that was crazy. That was in 90, maybe 91. He made enough commission that summer to buy a Camaro.
Whew.
Yeah. 1979 Camaro, but still a Camaro.
Yeah.
And he just, he was good at it. And it was easy because the product itself was great and you can believe in the product. So selling it wasn't really selling it. It was more just presenting. This is what's available to you. This is what is out there. And people didn't know. And once they knew, it's like, yeah, that makes sense. I want the water to be the absolute very best. I don't want to overpay, but I'll pay for quality. So we got to learn that with the BioGuard. Still a BioGuard Platinum dealership to this day. We use that on the route. Nice. And that's been a big piece of the success puzzle. So,
but I definitely think that's the difference between, I don't know, good and bad companies, I guess, is the ones that are knowledgeable about products and their services, and they're confident in the way that they speak with customers about things, and they also discuss the value of what they're going to be getting, right, opposed to somebody that doesn't have the confidence and doesn't know the product very well. And if you don't know your services or product very well, you're not going to have the confidence. You're really not.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that is really the difference, is the more that you explore your craft, you will be good at it. And then you'll be like, oh, we can take it one step further and do this. And when it comes to talking with customers, you're going to have just a whole nother level of confidence. And that's what it sounds like you guys did, and you got paid accordingly.
Yeah. And I think if you go to a customer and you're thinking about price, and if you're thinking about price and all you're thinking about is price and all they're thinking about is price, it's just going to, it's going to dwindle itself out. If someone were to call me and say, what do you charge? The first thing you say is, okay, that's a good question, but let me ask you, would you rather know what I do, for what I charge? Or do you just want a quick price?
Yeah.
And if they wanted a quick price, then you hit them with our minimum. And if they want to know more information after that, great. If not, then it starts and stops right there. But yeah, pricing shouldn't be an issue when you have a quality product.
Yeah.
People will pay for quality. And at the end of all this is all going to be geared to two things. One, it's going to be so that as a business person, you have a decent quality of life. That's going to be important. But also, you're going to have to deliver phenomenal service. So the customer themselves, they're the ones that support this. You give them a price and you get that price for the first month. Yeah, can you go back a second month or, a second year or a 10th year? And we do. Yeah, because the customers understand that there's value here and they will pay for that. And if I can do it, everyone can do it. It's a process.
And it's swimming pools too. There's so many things that you can use that kind of dance around price. You ever heard of Chet Holmes by chance?
I have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's phenomenal with his verbiage and selling. It's not just 50% off, 90% off. It's like, did you know the statistics on Americans spend, 10 times as much on chemicals?
Right.
That kind of thing. And it's that they just sit in the side yard and they actually don't use it. And it's kind of putting out that kind of thing. Like, did you know that, so many people don't have, this in their water, and statistics on safety and, all these different things. And it's like putting their mind and head in a whole different place, and it's gearing them to buy. But it's done strategically because it is out of honesty. It's just a different approach. You know what I mean? Because you're submerging your whole body into water. There's a whole nother different element to what we do in terms of safety and pleasure and all those different things. So
very true.
Yeah.
Yeah. When our customers, they don't refer to us as our pool cleaners, our pool guys, my pool cleaning company, and my pool service company. When they tell their friends and we get the referrals, it's usually, this is the guy who takes care of our water. And that's a really big difference. It's a big separator.
Big time.
So we don't do any advertising. It's all strictly referrals.
You also talked about being like a pool concierge service, right? Not there's like a pool service, but you do set it up like a concierge service, right?
Yeah. So in all honesty, the concierge service, it's kind of redundant. Service should be service, and service should be at the highest level in anything that's being done. Whether you get servicing your car, servicing your pool, service should always just be 100%. Somewhere 20, 30 years ago, people's expectations of service has just fallen off. And it's not just our industry, it's just in general. People have settled for less. And then so the whole term concierge service, it's used here and there, but it's basically something to counter to let people know that, hey, there's a higher level of service that's available, and that's the service that we subscribe to. That's our process, and we're here for you if you want to partake in that. So, and then you got to go above and beyond. I mean, the biggest thing we do is when we go out there and do first meetings with people, is it's really, really important to get their expectations. Once somebody tells me their expectations, I'm good on that. And I now got to meet those expectations. But what I really got to do, I got to exceed those expectations. That's where the concierge service comes in. And that's the level that anybody doing this business should be at. And it's not that hard. You know, people, they have this water vessel in their backyard. Yeah, it's Skip Phillips in here last. And he's right. I mean, people use their pool 365 days a year. It's because they're looking at it. It's a visual. You know, it means something to them to see water. Water is very calming and it's reassuring, and it's a lot of things to a lot of people. It's their investment. It's their home. And, you know, people look at it and get a different feeling and reaction to it, not just when they're inside of it. So it's important. It's important to make sure that that thing's always functioning and that thing's always having the appearance that it's party ready to go. And, you know, I have customers that tell me, you know, I only use the thing 5 to 10 times a year. And one time I had a customer, it was way back in the 90s. He came out with Excel sheets, and I'm like, what's an Excel sheet? He says, look, he's an accountant, and he says, hey, you know, between you, the water, the power, you know, I'm spending, you know, $5,000 a year, and I use this thing, you know, 5 times. Every time I get in it, it's $1,000 to swim. You got to lower your price. Looked him right in the eye and says, no, Jerry, you know, all you got to do is swim twice as much. I'll cut that in half. And, you know, it's like, hey, don't come at me with that.
Yeah.
So, but I get it, though. People don't use these things. You know, they would think that they would, every Saturday they're going to be in the pool. They're not. There's life. You know, life goes outside the pool. So the best way to look at it is that people are paying for the availability and the option to use that pool whenever they want. Not when you want, when they want.
Mm-hmm.
The best way to look at this is, I don't care what you're charging, what demographic you're in, what state or town you're in. Most people do not use their pools in the winter. You know, maybe October, November, they shut it down. And then they start back up around this time of year in around May. So there's about 7 months there. People are not swimming in that pool. So that means they're paying a service company, especially if you're in one of the sun belts like us. I mean, some of these pools shut down, period, and they don't pay nothing. But if someone's paying for service all the way year round, that means they're paying 7 months of service to have the availability on that first day they do use that first Saturday, that everything's going to be flawless. Now, could you imagine paying 7 times a monthly bill so that you can use it on that first day, and on that first day something does not work? I mean,
terrible.
That's frustrating. So if you have that mentality and understanding what people are actually paying for, you're going to be better suited to take care of their needs and everything else. And that's what we've kind of always instilled in our guys. They understand that very well. But it's also, we give that understanding to the customer. So basically, a lot of pools now, you can just go on an app, turn things on, and tell people, hey, listen, go on your app, turn on a spa, turn on a heater. It turns on. If it don't, hit another button on your phone. That's my number. Give me a call. And you know what? The idea is that, you know, most people don't use their pools between 9 to 5. They're out there working for these things. They use them after 5 o'clock. They use them on weekends. So they're going to want to call you on those times. So being available and taking that call. It's a lot easier to take the call now than let it go to a voicemail. Voicemail people can just really unload sometimes and just kind of emote. Then you hear it and it's like, wow, I don't want to call this guy back. He's heated. But most people aren't expecting an 8:30, call to someone answer. And usually we find 4 to 5 times, it's usually just a button. It's either a user error or something just got locked out on the heater and they get to reset it. And you look like a champion, taking that call for 5 minutes, and now they're in that spa and things are working. So that's concierge service, and I think a lot of guys are actually doing that already. They're actually taking those calls, or responding to calls after hours and Saturdays. So you got a lot of guys out there doing concierge service that aren't charging for it the way they should. And maybe that could be a thing that people can do differently, is recognizing already that, hey, I'm already doing more than the average guy, and why should I be charging the average rates?
Yeah. And we always talk about how that stuff goes a long way, because you're not under the microscope as much anymore. If, when they actually are home, taking that time to actually walk them through, some of the things they don't understand, or if they're having problems with their, heater or, spillover issue or, something, just taking the time and not making them feel like you're inconvenienced or being rushed. It's like, no, let's figure this out. You're paying for a service. I'm here to take care of you.
Yeah.
Make them feel like they're the only people in the world and nobody else.
Absolutely. And, to be honest with you guys, that sounds really good right now through these headphones. And I'm sure, listening to this one day out in the field or somebody's wrenching on a filter, that sounds like, yeah, we should all be doing that. But the reality is we don't do that. And the reality is we're humans and we're out there and we're working really hard. And it's very hard to be that polished and that friendly when people call. And you know what? You're going to come off sometimes a little bit more aggressive and abrasive than you really should. So, what we try to do is I'll call customers from time to time and check in with them. I'll make sure with the guys, everything's good with the pool. There's no issues, or if issues that we've had, they've been taken care of. Then call them up and just basically do a check-in with them and, how you doing and how are we doing and how's everything? And you give that customer that platform to really open up. Well, I did that 2 days ago with one of my longest customers, Sherry Heights. And I called her up and we had a 30-minute conversation. And somewhere in the 20-minute range, she said, well, to be honest with you, there's been times in the past where I call you and you seem like you can't be bothered. And I get really nervous calling you and I don't want to call you and bother you and feel like, I'm like a hindrance to you. And I said, wow, something? I do remember those calls when you did call. And I can look back the last couple of years, call here and there. It didn't go the way that I felt it should have gone. And I was frustrated with something else and probably the situation that you're having as well. But, that's my fault. And we're not always as polished as we can be. And, we're human beings. And I said, listen, that's something I could change. And that's something I can make myself more aware of when you call next time. So if we can fix something right here on this conversation, that is that you won't have to deal with that attitude. And when I see your name on the phone, rather than cringe, I'll actually pick it up and I'll talk to you and I'll take a step back and take a better approach on the situation. Because after all, I value your business and I value how long you've been with us and why you chose us and why you've chosen to stick with us. That means everything. So allow me to give you that back. And that was a really good exercise.
Yeah.
And that was coming here. I was, preparing for this and doing some of the notes here and realizing that, this is a customer right now that I think I should reach out to and tell her about this experience and tell her, hey, I'm gonna go do this podcast. And she said, well, what's a podcast? I just found out myself. It's kind of like the radio, but she was
way better.
Yeah. And she was real excited. And she says, hey, listen, you're the best. At the end of the day, you're the best, and we only want the best. We want to have everything we do for the home. We hire the best people, and you're the best people for the pools.
That's awesome.
I said, wow, that's great. So, Sherry Heights, thank you.
Shout out Sherry.
Yeah,
this sounds awesome, but everybody's working. A lot of people that listen to this already have like an established business. Some people 20 years, some people 5 years. The ranges are different, but how do you suggest, so if somebody's been in a business, has an established business, taking a look at that business, taking a step back and kind of seeing where you can make some changes? Because you can't just flip a switch one day and charge $200 a month if you're charging $100. So what do you think, what are some little steps here and there that can kind of push towards the big picture for people?
Well, you got 3 ways that I see it that you can do it. And respectfully, to your flip the switch, you can do. You can flip a switch.
You're right. You did it.
But so have others. So have others. You can do whatever you want to do, as long as it's within reason. But as far as wanting to do better at this, there should be nothing stopping you. And again, there's a lot of focus on pricing. When we tell people we start at $288 a month, and other people in the industry hear that, there's that gets some attention from people. Like, well, how do you do that? And then now you're asking, well, how did we transition from, let's say, a $145 account to a $265 account the next day? Well, for me, it's an interesting story, and it was an interesting time. This all happened mostly in 2007. So 12 years ago. That was the start of the last recession. And I knew that the 3-4 years before that, they were great. And there was a lot of business and a lot of money. But there seemed like there was more business than there was money. The money was there just as a byproduct of more business. So I just realized that it was really sad because at that time, I'm doing this for 16 years, and people are now going to lose their homes. There are people in my family that are losing their homes, friends that are losing their homes. Everybody knows somebody that's losing a home, not a house. They're losing a home. Children, there's memories. These things are happening. These are real. So pool service all of a sudden looked at, was in my mind was going to be, well, if they're not making a payment on the house, anybody can go out there and throw a gallon of chlorine in the pool. These are going to be hard times that are coming. They lasted for a few years for the really hard times, but we didn't know that before. At that point, it was like, wow, this is a tsunami. This is going to hit us, and it's going to hit us hard. This is real. So understanding that something has to change. Here I am realizing that we're charging a premium at that point, but still not really, making it the way it should be in the business as far as the success and as far as, having a quality of life. And now we got a recession in front of us. It's like, wow, how do you do this? And I remember just really paying attention to the environment around me at the time. One of the biggest things was the word recession was thrown around. It's in your face every day. As I remember Google was starting to come out, so let's just Google the word recession. It gives you all the different definitions, and one of them was to slow down. And I realized, wow, that's an interesting take. So now I'm going to be able to slow down because we had all this work, and so that's going to slow down. So maybe in that slow down turn, we can, reapproach and reinvent some things here. So that was really more of an opportunity. I think one of the greatest opportunities in life is creating one where one doesn't exist. And in this time with the recession, this just seemed like this may not be the time to do this and to hold on. Because when this hits, it's going to hit hard. And then the other side of me said, no, this is definitely the time to do it. And this was going to be a financial tsunami. We had the actual tsunami in Asia at the same time. And you remember seeing those things on the news on CNN. You saying, wow, these are people literally running for their lives. And these are people running for high ground. They're running for hilltops to avoid this water that's going to hit and most likely kill them, wipe them out. And I remember watching CNN at that time. And again, the recession. And this one guy said to another commentator, we're in a financial tsunami. And the other commentator looked at him like, wow, that's really poor taste. We're talking about a real tsunami here, and people are dying, and you're going to bring them the recession? But when I heard him say that, I thought, wow, no, that's it. This is definitely, it's what this is. It's a financial tsunami. And I remember seeing the images and then thinking inside my mind, everybody's running for high ground. But what if somebody were to run towards the water? And if you were to do that, you'd have to have the biggest, longest, baddest surfboard. And what if this wave that was coming, you were somehow able to ride this and ride it like it's never been ridden before? And that was a whole different approach to the pool industry. So going back to grandma's pool, $100 a day, a visit, and realizing that there's quality here. There's people that will pay. Sure, there are going to be very, very few of them. But I'm going to go out and find those people, and I'll make a business out of those people. And as it turns out, those are some of the best customers to be working with anyway, because those are people that appreciate value. Mm-hmm. And then realizing, well, this is all starting to fall into play. So at that time, I'd only worked for my father's company and being on my own. And that was pivotal. And at that same time, realizing you don't go outside the family. So by some chance, it was also a time where I started doing advertising. And I don't like advertising. I like referrals. So much easier. But these are hard times. You gotta get more business. So I did advertising, and that didn't work at all. And it was in a high-end magazine, so it was a bad approach. But I got out of that contract, and when I did, the person who let me out of that said, by the way, flipped over a few pages in the magazine and said, here's a pool builder that I think you and him would really, do well with each other. And I thought, oh, okay. Yeah, but in my mind, I'm thinking, no, it's not my dad. That guy's not our family. So that's just a competitor. And she gave me a Post-it with his name and number. His name is Dennis Wisby, Allstate Pools. So I thought, wow, this might be something. So I remember calling my dad and asking him kind of for permission to do this, to go outside the family, but also at the same time, hey, you know this guy? You know this guy, Dennis? It turns out he says, yeah, I know Dennis. I said, oh, wow. Was he a good guy? Yeah. Yeah, I knew him 20 years ago, and 20 years ago, he was a great guy. So, and he says, yeah, but so was Michael Jackson. I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. What does that mean? What is it? Yes or
without that last
yeah,
one.
it's like, yeah, yes or no. What do I mean? Should I be concerned? He's like, I don't give him a call. See what he's doing. So I called Dennis, and he knew right away. He mentioned my dad's name. He says, yeah, you're Russ's boy. I said, yeah. He's all right. What can I do for you? I said, well, I do startups. And he says, hey, I'm looking for a startup guy. I'm like, really? He says, yeah. And then that afternoon, he gave me 5 startups.
Oh, wow.
Now, I've never gotten 5 startups in my life. I've gotten 3 or 4 from my dad at a time when we were real busy. But 5 was like, wow. And he faxed them over. And I met with them and went out and did the work. And then that was the opportunity to start changing the price structure and to realize that, okay, so now there's a flood of customers all of a sudden coming in. So I could try this new price structure, price matrix, and offering this higher end service. And people were really receptive to it. So 2007, Memorial Day weekend, that's when it all hit. I signed up 4 people in that weekend. And I realized that, okay, this is the way of the future for me, for the company, for my business. This is what's going to happen. Delivering a higher end product. Concierge service was born. So I worked with Dennis for 10, 12 years. It was a great relationship. And it was huge. It changed everything, and right before that, some key things were happening too. My dad was getting involved with Genesis 3 back then. And we'd taken these classes. He was taking these classes. And I thought for a second I can get into the pool building, pool remodeling. So I went and started taking these classes. And the whole idea back then with Genesis, the program is that there's these group of people out there that do have money and are quality people and will spend it. And do you want to be the type of people they spend it with? I was like, yes, I do. And so it was a lot of money to take their classes, but it was so well worth it. I mean, what these guys were teaching, I've never built a pool in my life, but just from a service point of view, I could really understand it. So, I took that program and finished with their service end of it. And that's one of our certifications as well to this day. But that was a game changer because in that class, it was Redondo Beach. My dad and I took a class, great class. It was a color theory class. And it's like, wow, this is like kind of like play school. But understanding how colors work and don't work with each other and the whole philosophies behind. And it was a lot of fun. And then we had an art appreciation class after that. And that was great. Well, there was a gentleman in that class. His name is Rick Katz. And we got to meet him. And we hit it off with him as well. And at that time, he was working for Dennis of Allstate Pools. And that was the summer before I called Dennis up. So now when I had Dennis and I had my dad and the connection with Dennis and my dad, I had the connection with Rick and Dennis. So it was really strong. So going for, the higher education and continuous education, that's huge because it's a whole networking thing. You just don't know where it's going to land. But getting the Allstate account was a game changer. It was definitely a game changer.
Right.
And working with somebody outside the family for the first time. And then my dad retired shortly thereafter, the recession. It was just tough. It wasn't worth going out and, pursuing 100 hours and not coming out. And again, being a salesperson and one of the greatest salespersons, he can sell anything. So making his living on other endeavors was more profitable. So I'm out there, really for the first time on my own. And it was great. It was going to be sink or swim, and I'm still swimming.
Nice. So sum all that up. I mean, what are the steps? So you think there's a few ways to do it. So one of them is building relationships and finding. Yeah,
networking's great. But even if you don't network, I think if you wanted to go on your next stop, your next lead, your next prospect, if you just wanted to change things up in your verbal presentation, if you had the mentality, let's say if you had $38 million in the bank, you wouldn't care if you get this next account or not as far as monetary, So now everything about you and your passions about what you do should come out. So find that and make sure that don't go in there with money on the mind, because the money will follow. The pricing will it will automatically.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people will understand when I give my talk and everything to the customer, sometimes people say, well, you're going to really be pricey, I can tell. And then you tell them the price and they're like, wow, that's 3 times what we're paying now. But you've clearly listened to them and their needs and expectations, and you have detailed everything on those point by point. So you've presented a non-argument case. I mean, you're going to do everything they need and want. So, of course, that's going to cost them.
Yeah.
And then when you get them the price, it's usually 80% of the time, it's, all right, we'll try it.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you told me before, confidence likes confidence, right? And, success wants to be around success. So you go, like you're talking about going into your backyard, and I think you started to master it, Greg, at the end of Brothers, was really presenting yourself in a way that they can't say no. This is what it is, and this is why we're better, not putting other people down, but explaining what you're offering.
Never put anybody down.
Right. Explain what you're offering and what they're getting. Like you said, finding their issues and solving those issues, and through conversation, figuring out, okay, I know what you're asking for. I understand your expectations. Let me tell you how I'm going to meet those. Right. That's kind of the real approach. And yeah, I mean, you charge, $110 a month, go next time and say it's $150, see what happens. Explain the right way, explain everything, figure out your pitch, get confident in what you're doing, and try it.
Yeah, just setting yourself apart and not thinking that you have to be part of the herd. I mean, read Outliers. That's a good start right there. Read that book and or listen to the audio tape at least on that. But that's huge. Start putting in your 10,000 hours if you haven't already, and make yourself great. But this can all be done. I mean, it's hard to go back to the customers you have and convert them all, but that's not impossible. Mm-hmm. People understand. I mean, the biggest thing we do that we fail, one of our biggest failures as business people in the pool industry, pool service industry, we don't raise pricing. You keep them there for years and years. Then you try and raise people and they're like, whoa, what is this? So you got to keep on your pricing. And I mean, your costs are going up, daily, weekly, monthly, yearly. So some of these costs, they become inflammatory. You can't absorb those, and then you can't just go out and do more pools to offset that. That doesn't work. Right.
And you told me the other day, if you have a good service and you're providing something of value, and you used your landscaper as an example, if your landscaper or we as a pool service raise your pool service $10 a month or $20 a month, like you got to present in a way, right, that people don't like change. They don't want to deal with change. So, kind of, if you want to touch base on that, you told a little bit better, I think. But
yeah, my gardener, I had this guy for 2 years, and he started out at $80, and that's just the front lawn, and it's worth it. It's $20 a week, and he does a great job. So he comes, and at the end of that year, I get the invoice, and these are like Office Max type little 3x5 tear off. And he writes my name and then puts the amount. That's it. That's my bill. So at the 13th month, it went from 80 to 90. There's no phone call. There's no letter. There's no explanation. It's just a thing he drops off in the mailbox. It just jumped up $10. So that first year, I thought, look at this guy. I like that. You know what? He deserves that extra 10. All right. I'm paying nothing already, so $10 on top of nothing. That's all right. I like that. Some moxie.
Was there an extra line item though on the invoice?
Nothing. Just it went from January 80 to January 90, and I thought, okay, hey, I like this guy, so I paid him the 90, no problem. Then on this year, January bill comes and went from 90 to 100, and for some reason, when I saw that bill, I got all like bent out. In my mind, I'm thinking, the hell is this guy? It's going to be $10 a month extra every year. So like in 5 years, I'll be paying $150. Then I realized, no, actually $160. You do the math right. And I said, yeah, I can't do that. And this is all the garbage that you have in your head, right? And I started thinking, yeah, but in 5 years from now, that's going to be well worth it, I guess, and good for him. I mean, this is good. It's a good business plan. And then I started thinking, nah, I don't want to do that. He's got to talk to me. He's got to let me know. And I'm thinking, I never see the guy. The lawn always looks perfect.
Right.
And I don't have to think about it. It's just a set it and forget it. What conversation are we going to have for $10 a month? I'm too busy for that. I'm assuming he's too busy. Just, here it is, take it or leave it. And then I just went back and forth in my head, like, nah, this is not cool. I don't do this to my customers. And then I came down to the realization, okay, so I'm going to like change this guy. And that was it. Then I realized I ain't going to change nothing, because for $10 a month to save that, I got to now start interviewing guys and take time. I don't have that. Mm-hmm. And for the whole year, for the extra 120, I'll buy out of that situation. So then I realized, he beat me. And then I realized, you know what? This guy's doing all right. This guy's doing good. He's doing good by me. I never had an issue with his, services. And again, the lawn just always looks perfect. So yeah, he's worth it. And then every year I'll just realize it's going to go up $10. And if I'm lucky enough to have him 10 years from now and he's $200, I mean, that's probably what lawn service will cost in 10 years is $200. And it's going to cost me a lot more than that to do it myself or figure out how to do it myself and all that stuff. So yeah, it was just a good analogy. And then I thought, wow, imagine if we all did that. Imagine if we just threw an extra 10 on there, and, people will pay. And when we've done...
Explain it a little bit better, but...
Yeah. I mean, but even still, we've had, people paid, you get a new billing person, let's say, and there's a number off and it's a $90 difference and they pay. They hit a 9 instead of a 0 and, it's not 308, it's 398 and someone pays. And they don't catch it for 6 or 7 months, which is crazy to admit, but sometimes that happens in businesses. And then you're like, oh my God, this person's paying $90. And you go back and talk to them and they say, well, we just figured, you haven't raised this. And like, okay, so you guys are happy, everything's good with the pool. And, this is some of the things we're looking at coming up. And you just transition into like, we're good and they're good. But the gardener thing was a big eye opener just recently, because it's like, we should all be doing that.
Yeah.
And
I like that story.
Yeah, we're all working hard out there. You know what I mean? We're all out there like the gardener, doing our thing and maintaining the quality and providing that service and providing that set it and forget it mentality that people need now more than ever, because everyone's working so hard.
Yeah, like you said, people are afraid to raise their prices as an industry, but you look at it from that perspective of, hey, like if you actually if you provide a crappy service, then they're probably not going to pay it. But if you're providing a good quality service and you want to raise your prices, looking at it from that perspective and explaining it in a way where it's like, you know what, we do a really good job for these people, and you probably have 2 or 3 drop off because they're just worried about the price, but you probably don't want them anyways because they're not good customers. Looking at it from that perspective really changes a way that you could think about it as yourself as a business owner. And hey, I don't want to go through all that stuff of trying to find another pool guy, trying to do this. Our relationship is good. We've had each other for 2 years. Like, I know when to call him. I know when the issues are. That guy understands my equipment. For $10 a month, $20 a month, I'm not going to do all that.
Absolutely.
I'm not taking my time out of the day for me to find another pool guy. Like, it's cool. Like, he deserves it.
And I think we're hard on ourselves more than the customers would be on that issue of raising the money. Mm-hmm. Because I think, let's be honest, a lot of us in this business don't have any business training, business degrees. I'm one of them. I don't have that. So you're not business savvy in that sense. And the idea that, like, oh, wow, I'm going to put an extra 20 in my pocket per month and it's X amount of customers. Oh, that's a lot of money. I think that's a couple $1,000s a month coming in. No, people aren't going to go for that because, if everyone thought that I'm going to get $2,000 a month, it's, people would just like, no, I'm not doing that. Why would I do that? Well, the thing about it is not taking the time to understand and quantifying how much money you're paying extra this year just in chemicals alone, and everything else we're buying has gone up. Mm-hmm. Everything has gone. There's nothing that has gone down and hardly anything that has been unchanged. Almost everything has gone up. So if you're getting an extra couple $1,000s a month, you're actually going to utilize all that in those charges and those increases that you've already been paying. So that's important. You got to do that. Otherwise, these inflammatory costs, you can't absorb these. Mm-hmm. And it's important. And at the end of the day, what you really want to do, if you're really passionate about this, and this is something that you're in it, this is it. This isn't going to be, I'll do this for 5 years and figure something else out. Then if you're in this for life, ultimately what you're going to want to do is give that customer the very best of service. And these pricing structures allows you to do that. It 100% allows you to, be able to provide everything that goes into this whole stew of having that perfect pool and that perfect situation.
Speaking on the pricing matrix, how does somebody even start one of those? What do you look at to build a price matrix so that you can kind of change the way you look at pricing for service?
Well, what I would advise is that, first of all, you can look at your personal monthly nut, figure out what your rent, your mortgage, cars, gas, you got kids, no kids. What does it cost you to live? So once you have that number, then you have to realize, well, I now have to make that every month. Plus I got to make, a hedge fund on that. Plus I got to have savings on top of that. It's the way you should, be if you're out here and running your own business.
Essentially a budget.
Correct. So once you know what that monthly, nut's going to be, and now you know what you got to bring in. And then you got to know, well, this is what my profit has to be. This is what has to come in from, after all the cost and everything. So that gives you a baseline. And then once you have that, you figure out how many hours in a day you're going to work, how many days a week you're going to work. You figure out, well, this is how many hours and days I'm working. Well, then divide that by your monthly budget and what your needs are. And then now you got an hourly rate of what you need minimally. Most guys don't do that. They just figure that if I'm charging $80 a month, $85 or $90 a month, and there's a pool next door, I'm going to get that pool, and I'm probably going to do it $5 cheaper because it's next door. And I'll, instead of doing 12 to 15 pools a day, they're going to do 25, 30 pools a day. And they lose track of, all those cost factors. But figuring out for us what it comes down to is, my guys, we only want them doing 12 pools a day. If you're going to really deliver quality, you can't, at least for us, be doing more than 12 a day. And if you do, it's real rare. It's like a situation where we're trying to get to a class, so we'll double up, and it's usually in the off season anyway. But quality is going to dictate how much time you should be in that yard each week. And then you have other matrix like, the cost of the chemicals. So what types of chemicals are you going to use? Are you going to use the low end, off-brand type that usually don't have the potency that other, name brand chemicals do have? And of the name brands, which brands are you going to use? And are you going to be a chlorine and acid guy and a tab guy? And again, because everybody else does that, and that's what you're going to do. Or you're going to take some classes and get some education, some certifications, and realize that, there's so much more out there. And, and I shouldn't be just adding these one-all tabs that do 6 different things, when 4 of the things that I'm actually treating are already balanced. And now you're making those elevated, and the water becomes aggressive. And you just don't know because you don't know. No, so take the time and get yourself a good test kit, that should test, 6 things at least. I'd stay away from strips. They're good for, spot check here and there. But to really, hone in on your accuracy, having a test kit, having a good test kit. And customer sees that when you come in to test the water, right there, that's a big thing. They understand, and my guy doesn't have that. And here you are, you're not telling them there's something wrong with their guy. That's just them pointing out that, well, the test kit he has, it's on his waistband, and it's a yellow bottle and a red bottle, and he just squirts it over the pool. And it's like, oh yeah, okay, that's the tape measure holster that they have at Home Depot, and the guys use the phenol red and the OTO bottles, and they just drop them in. I mean, we've seen that a lot. So there's no way of getting accuracy on that. And just figuring out how to separate yourself from the herd and all that good stuff. And every layer of everything you do has to have value in it.
Yeah.
What's really big in I don't know about you guys in Arizona, but what's huge in California right now is workman's comp. It's huge. It's the claims, the amount of claims are in the last 2 years have been more so than claims in 10 years combined. It's bad. So it used to be the land of opportunity. Now it's the land of the opportunist when it comes to that. And it's sad. So, but we have to have that. In California, we had the Dynamax case last year, which basically wants to take the word independent contractor and alleviate that altogether. So these are full employees. You have to have employees. They have to have benefits. They have to have health care. They have to have workman's comp. So that was a major, major hit last year to the pool industry in Southern California, because most guys didn't have that. Most guys are 1099 people, and it's like, oh, he's got his own truck. He's an independent guy, this and that. We've had that for years, decades. So when we tell the customer, hey, listen, this is what we're doing. We're not only taking care of the water, we're taking care of the equipment, but we're also insulating you from the liability of everything out there, of anything that's potential. God forbid somebody has a slip and fall on your property. It's 100% on me, nothing on you.
Right.
That's huge.
I think, talking about price so much, a lot of people have to understand they might not be in the place where their team is ready to bump the prices up, because in order to do that, this is a saturated market here especially for pool service, that you really have to be, there's so many things that you have to work on inside your business before you can get it to the point to where you can charge those prices. And that's down to, there's processes, there's job descriptions for every single person. Everybody knows who's accountable for what. Everybody knows their role. And it's really hard to be able to turn those prices up if, every little thing is not checked off. But once you get that thing checked off, could very well take, depending on your finances and what you have going on, it could take a couple years. But if you set up goals like, what, I would ideally like to charge, X amount for pool service a month. We're not there yet, but if we get a fleet of vehicles and we organize them correctly and we're paying the guys correctly and they all have insurance and benefits and, everything is dialed in, the processes, we're not wasting other people's time because they're asking the same questions every day. Every little thing is dialed in. Then at that point in time, we have something to show our customers like, hey, this is what our team looks like. You're covered if, like you just said, if there's a slip and fall on the property, we're going to take the hit on that, not you. And that's just the way we've structured this, because you're getting a full service. When our team comes, they're going to be here the same time each week. We're going to have less turnover because we, compensate our team the way that they should be. Not even the standard, like it's twice above standard. You know what I mean? And that was a big thing that customers and future customers wanted here was, am I going to get a new pool guy, every month, every week? And it's like, no, that's the difference that we make, is that we pay them accordingly. We give them a vehicle. We give them a safe work atmosphere. They get trained once a week, once a month. All those things. You might think that why the hell would a customer care about those things? Well, you know what? People that have pools are business people too. And they know that stuff matters.
Right.
And when you talk about that, they can relate to it quite a bit. They might even be like, damn, because there's times that we would say things on bids where I know they're messing around, but it still felt good, where they'd be like, are you hiring? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, I know it's kind of a joke, but they were just kind of impressed with, wow, like, and you're sort of disarming them a little bit.
Oh, absolutely. And that's you basically what you're doing is just showing them your process, and they have to buy into that. They would want to buy into that. And if they don't, then they're really not the customer for you. But it comes down to that, it's what do these, what does a customer want? Do they want the same old service they're having now, that they're calling you to come out, and at the same time wanting you to be cheaper? Because you get those every now and then, right? Mm-hmm. And like I don't understand that process.
That thought. No.
That just doesn't make sense. Okay, so when someone says, "Hey, well, I'm right across the street," I mean, you sure you want to turn this down? Because it's like easy money, it's free money. I'm right here. You can do the pool and this and that. It's like, well, on that philosophy of driving past your pool, I mean, I think we drive past 2,500 pools per each stop, if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
Or during the whole day, it's like, how many pools are we driving by? I mean, we're not trying to do every single pool in the block.
Right.
And
I think you mentioned to me too that like your match for match mentality, when someone's like, hey, can you match that price?
Oh, yeah. So we have a price match, because that's a big thing, right?
Yeah.
Price, hey. So we tell people straight, it's honest, it's clean. We're the most competitively priced firm in Los Angeles for pool service at $288 a month. And there's silence just like that. It's like, wow, okay. And I said, yeah. So basically what we'll do is we'll match anybody else's price, provided that they can outline in written detail, as we have, with everything that we're going to do, everything we're about, all the certifications we have, all the qualifications we have, all the good stuff. And if you can, show me that, I'd be more than willing to match or beat that.
Right.
And then that's never happened. Yeah, it could. I know there's other guys that charge what we charge, by the way. I'm not the only guy out there. It's not like I'm the king of the hill getting these rates. No, there's guys charge what we charge and more, especially the guys I know that are independent, don't have a crew, and they got the tenure that I got, they're getting $450 and $500.
Yeah.
And they're getting it. Again, like I told you guys earlier, you can say what you charge. You can say what you charge all day long. That's great, but are you getting that? So, I just tell people, listen, if, as long as we're matching apples to apples, not apples to toasters, we're good,
Mm-hmm.
And people understand that. There's hardly any negotiation on our end. I mean, these are pretty exact numbers. 288. That's definitely a price matrix where something's been figured out very tightly. So it's there. It is what it is, and it's I have an easier time getting that than I used to at 85 30 years ago when everyone else was charging 65. And we have people that are paying, $95 and $90 that go into the $200-$300 range, $400 range sometimes. And it's like, you think like, wow, how are they doing that? But because they were so far on the opposite spectrum of service and what they were getting. And they'll use that adage that, I guess you get what you pay for. But in our industry, you sometimes get far less than what you pay for. So even for $90, like, hey, if I was charging $90 and I never show, hey, give me that deal if you're going to pay that guy that.
Yeah.
I just send you an invoice for $90 and you paid it and this guy never showed for 2 months.
Right.
Come on now. I don't have $90 in that 288 for a profit margin. That's the truth.
Right.
I mean, these are high costs, and I know my margins. I know what things cost to run a business this way. I know what this level of service cost me. I know what it takes to provide a quality of life to my employees and everything that's involved in that. So I understand.
Right.
And I tell people, I said, look, yeah, no one is more shocked about what this cost than me. It's the truth. When I sit there at the office and I look at this monthly, just the workman's comp and how these things just go up every year. Healthcare just goes up 12, 13%. It is what it is. You can't just stop it. That's just how it goes. It's just part of the cost of doing business. But I tell customers, listen, no one's more stunned than me what it takes and what it costs to workman comp and insure an individual who's qualified and trained to work with water, high voltage, and gas. It's unbelievable what it costs to have that. And they look at you like, yeah, I'm sure that is. I'm sure that's a lot of money.
Right.
Because it is. Because that's, there's different classifications when you do workman's comp. Are they just cleaning a pool? Well, no, these guys are doing everything. Well, then that's the premium.
Right.
So these are real costs. These are real numbers. And people understand that.
Well, congratulations, because it took a lot of work to get to that point. You don't just turn prices up. It takes a lot of work, and you have to educate yourself and your team and take care of everybody. It's a lot of work that goes into getting it to that point. So we know that you take education pretty seriously, and you have from the very beginning. Can you share with us why, you chose to invest so much time in education for yourself and for your team?
Yeah, education, obviously you want to learn more. That's obvious. I also learned really quickly in taking seminars and going out of state sometimes for these seminars that the amount of money it would take to go to these classes and the opportunity cost away from work to go to these classes, it's not cheap. But I knew there's a correlation that all of a sudden you come back and you're armed with this new stuff. You got an understanding of things that you didn't have before, and then you go out there and you sell. And I would always make that money back in the first 15 days of coming back easily. And it's a guarantee. It's always happened.
It's a really cool way of looking at it.
28 years, it has never not happened. I remember one time, I think it was 2009, thick of the recession, and go to the Long Beach Western Pool and Spa show. And the big thing was the Virginia Graham Baker Act, the drain covers. And in LA, we have the LA County Health Department. They were going to mandate all these pools, you're facing closures, this and that, you have to do this. And we don't do commercial pools for a lot of reasons, but one of them is the idea of being managed by a group of people or a homeowners association, and that ain't going to work out for us. So, inevitably, people who do commercial pools knew that this was going to be an uphill battle to get people now to switch something out, a drain cover. And there was a lot of opposition. There was like, well, a lot of guys were up in arms. They got to reverse this. And then a few old timers would say, no, they ain't going to reverse this. This is a senator's granddaughter. This thing got passed in record time. This is it. This is happening. This is federal. So hem and haw you want, but this is the deal. And I was in a room that probably took a seating of maybe 300, and there had to have been 500 guys in that room standing. It wasn't a single floor space available. It was bad. And some guy in the middle of the room, don't know who this guy is, but the room was quiet, and he just shouted out, VGB. Yeah. Very good business act. Go out there and make money. Stop whining. And he shut the room down. Yeah. Oh, wow. So very good business act. And guess what? People, it's a federal thing. You have to do it. So there was money there. And then it was the right timing because of the recession. So it's the way you look at things. But being there in that room and being part of that at the right time, you hear that. And there was money to be made there. Another big thing is, you guys know Greg Garrett. So the way I met Greg Garrett's an interesting story. So this was probably 10, 12 years ago. And I had a customer that had a pool with some really bizarre issues. Started getting little orange rust spots. And I'd always realized, well, that's just steel rebar, coming out the ties leaching through. And especially when I would see them in a corner square pattern, 12 inches from each other, like, yeah, that's that. That's definitely that. Well, this was a brand new pool or a remodel. And this was an Allstate pool, Dennis Wisby. And that was a brand new relationship. And the idea was, okay, so there's a builder that's now on the hook. There's a plaster company on the hook. And then there's the startup service guy. Well, I'm the startup and service guy. So I'm taking 50% of this. And something told me, well, okay, so the plaster guy is saying it's my fault without ever seeing it. Like, all right, that's convenient. And now the builder's saying, hey, I don't know anything about nothing. I just go out there and sell and build them for you guys so you guys all have work. So you guys figure it out. And the plaster company wanted nothing to do with figuring this out. So I said to the plaster company, I said, well, how much would it cost to redo? It says $7,000. And that's a good price for you. I'm like, okay, whatever. And it was a high-end product. It was Diamond Bright, and it has a lot of aggregate in there. So then Dennis says, hey, we're going to have an industry expert come out. I'm like, oh, that don't sound good. And he says, yeah, bring your checkbook. I'm like, all right. So in my mind, I just figured, oh, this is a $7,000 cost of doing business. And by the time we had the meeting, I just totally had it in my head that I'm writing a $7,000 check, and I'll buy out of this and hopefully learn a lesson here. So I walk into this yard, and there's this big guy, Greg Garrett. He's got these duffel bags, and I'm thinking, that's it, I'm done. Because he starts bringing out these test kits, and I'm like, oh, man, I didn't even know they had test kits like this. And he says, do you know anything about dilution? I'm like, oh, yeah, everyone knows dilution. And he's like, yeah, well, show me. And I'm like, hey, I'll show you. You show me. He's like, all right, that's what I thought. So he's like, let's test your conditioner. And luckily, I was good on that, but I didn't know anything about doing the dilution test on conditioner. So I started talking to Greg, and then I had a few moments where it was just him and I. And all of a sudden, things turned real positive because I started looking at everything he put on the deck. And I said, what does this do? What does this one do? And he would take the time. And all of a sudden, I had this little private tutorial right down this pool deck. I'm like, oh, wow, okay, I'm going to get that. Can I get that over SAP? Yeah, you can. Here's the part number. I'm like, all right. And then
I bet he gave you the part number.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then he started quoting from the IPSA manual. He's like, you're an IPSA member? Yeah. Page 72, the paragraph this. I'm like, you just memorize this? He's like, you can ask me anything about that book. And I'm like, all right. He's like, you got that manual with you? I'm like, nah, it's in my office, and it's, on a bookshelf. No, that's the problem. It has to be with you at all times in the back of your truck or inside your truck. I said, all right. And he gave me one right on the spot. I'm like, all right, so let me give you 50. It says $50 right here. He's like, no, that's for you. So we hit it off. And I said, yeah, everything looks good on the pool, right? And he says, everything looks real good on this pool, chemical-wise. I'm like, wow. Then how am I messing this up? He says, well, you're not messing this up at all. I'm like, oh, okay. Is it the steel ties? He says, no, it's not the steel ties. Well, what is this? He's like, hey, you ever heard of National Plaster Council? Of course, everyone's heard of that. You a member? No. Should I be? Yeah, you should be. So, well, in the National Plaster Council handbook, page such and such, paragraph such and such, there's a whole thing about mined impurities. I'm like, oh, what are those? mined impurities. And he gives me the whole thing. And he says, that's what you have here. You have mined impurities that have surfaced out to the top, and they oxidize, and they make these little tiny orange and red freckles. I said, oh, okay. So what do we have to do? We fix that with chemicals? Oh, no. What you do is you take a dental pick, go down there, dive down there, pick them all out, and then maybe polish them with a little diamond pad, little acid if you need to. So, okay. So when we do the new plaster job, we'll make sure that we start doing that. And he says, well, what do you mean new plaster job? You don't have to. I said, no, I got a check for $7,000. We're going to redo the place. So, hey, I'm not sure if you're slow, but I just told you your chemistry is real good. I mean, your chlorine's a little elevated here, and that's not helping with the oxidation factor, but you're good on all accounts. So I said, what does that mean? He says, you are slow. And I said, well, yeah, but I got 7,000 on the line here, so I'm going to take this real slow. He says, well, I'm telling you right now, you can put that checkbook away. This is not on you. And I looked at the plastic guy. I'm like, yeah. Chemistry, eh? And he looks at him, and he don't know anything about mined impurities, and he's the plaster guy. So now he's shaking like a leaf, like, oh man, it's gonna have to replaster. We'll chip this out tomorrow.
Who the hell is this guy?
Yeah, and everybody stood up that day. It was real good. Even the plaster company just basically, he was ready to chip it all out, because this guy, Dennis from Allstate, everybody, he was taking care of all of us, so we wanted to make sure he was taken care of, and he's not going to get hit. And Greg says, listen, you guys, do any of you have a wetsuit? The plaster's like, yeah, I got a wetsuit. Scuba dick. Good. Get your suit on. Get out here. Get yourself a dental pick. Pick these out. Polish them, and you're done. And you might have to do that from time to time. That's a normal maintenance for this type of plaster. And the plaster guy's like, wow, so we don't have to chip this out? Greg says, I don't know about you guys here in California, because it's real slow. Something in the water here.
I got to keep repeating myself.
Yeah. But there's no redo on this. This is just a maintenance issue. And so I was like, wow, okay. So that was my first meeting with Greg.
Wow.
So that man saved me $7,000 on that spot, that first day meeting.
It's crazy to think how many companies have actually chipped out a new pool, because of that.
Yeah.
And somebody had to pay for it when it very well could have just been done through that process.
But you had a customer that was demanding action. The pool was less than 6 months old, and, they shouldn't have to accept this. To them, it's a defective product, and take it out and make it new.
But that very well could have just happened again.
Oh, easily. And their first thing was that they weren't going to allow the plaster company to do it, because why have the guy who screwed it up or the startup guy? No, we'll start with some new people. So if they went down that direction and they had a plaster company come in and say, oh, yeah, this is definitely, bad workmanship or bad product, that's it. Yeah. And I'm paying that guy whatever that guy charges, and it probably even won $7,000. So Greg was great on that. And then we immediately became members of MPC. And then whatever he had, he had these classes. I'm like, oh my God, wow. So this guy right here, I could go to a day class and bring my guys. Well, this is going to be amazing. So we did that right away. And then there were times we couldn't get everybody together, and he happened to be in town. And one day I said, hey, listen, would you mind coming over to the house? I'll bring everybody. We'll take the day off and give us a class, and I'll pay your rate. And he did. And that was amazing. So we had our own private, tutorial class, and he gave me a phenomenal rate on that, which was almost like, I think it was pretty much exactly what we'd pay if we went to see him somewhere. So that was great. And networking with him ever since has been great. And just recently, him and Bob Larry have done their new residential program, which has been phenomenal. So we took that certification back in October, had everybody go down to see him again on that. And in the class, there is this guy, and when you go to a class, sometimes there's always that one guy that's like asking the teacher all the questions, but like trying to stump the guy. And I'm like, oh man, this guy don't know nothing. And he's trying to, of all the people in the world, stump Greg and Bob. I'm like, right. That ain't going to happen. Yeah. And he was just asking all these questions. It seemed like maybe he was trying to stump them, but he basically was just, everything was like doubled and triple checked with this guy. And so we're like, wow. And it was the whole 6 hours. At the end of the 6 hours, he asked some question, but then makes an announcement that, yeah, don't do any residential pools. It's all commercial. And then Greg and Bob looked at each other and said, the word residential is right in the class.
Yeah, that changes everything.
And, commercial guys and residential guys are, they're different breeds. But he was a good guy. That guy, his name is Ryan. His company name is Mr. Poolman. And I know that because just 2 months ago, I got a call from him. And he says, hey, I don't know if you remember me. My name's Ryan, Mr. Pool Guy. No, it's all right. Great Garrett's class, this and that. Were you the guy asking all those questions? Yep, that's me. I'm like, okay, I remember you, man. And he says, hey, here's my situation. I only do commercial, and I work for big management companies, and the owner of that management company, one of them that I do most of my work for, he has a pool in Bel Air, and he wants me to do it, and I can't do it. I don't do residential, and I don't do Bel Air. I'm like, that's funny. I'm in Bel Air right now. He's, oh, that's great. Do you do residential? That's all I do. I don't touch commercial at all.
I was in that class. Residential.
Yeah. Right.
Residential.
Yeah. So he says, hey, I'm going to give you his information. Can you go over and talk to him and can you take care of him? I'm like, yeah, of course. But it was like crazy because I'm like, wow, could you not make an exception for this one pool, this one guy that gives you all this work? But, he does what he does. And I thought, okay, I do what I do. Well, anyway, I went over there, met the guy, and we hit it off, and I got that account. And I told Ryan, I said, hey, thanks so much. Let me take care of you. He said, hey, man, take care of my customer. That's good enough. You don't take care of me. The fact that you're taking care of him, trust me, that's all that you can do for me. I don't need anything from it. And then that guy gave us another referral 3 days later, and that was a huge account. So here this guy is in this class with Greg Garrett and Bob, and next thing you know, it's 2 large accounts. So, education going to these events, it's not just the education and certifications you're going to get, but it's the networking. You're going to be around like-minded people. Again, success like success. And that's never going to be a bad thing. And it may not be like that every time you go, but, for me, for sure, since the very first one to the last one I've always made that money, whatever it's spent. And sometimes I've spent 6, 7, 8,000 when you take a whole crew to Vegas for 5-6 days. That adds up fast.
Right.
And we've made that money within 15 days.
I was going to say, you explained, my next question pretty well. And that if you think that you can't afford education, think about what you're going to get out of it. Create some goals, put some money aside for however much that education is going to cost. Because if you have a plan and you know that you are going to be educated on this topic in particular, when you get back, like you did within 15 days, you applied it and got your money back. That should be the same model that you take back from whatever classes you were taking. Take that information, take all the notes, ask all the questions, do the networking, because that is such a valuable piece. The networking by itself, you're a scout. Sometimes you're scoping the place out like, that was a good question. I feel like we are connecting right now. Mm-hmm. And you connect with that person, go back to the city you're from or whatever you got going on, get everybody back in the field and apply what you've learned. And that's where you're going to get your money back. But also that's where you're going to get even more in time to come, because it's not just getting your money back. It's plus. So. Oh yeah.
After all, that's how I met you guys. One of the trade shows, and then seeing you guys at the booth and then thinking, that was my first reaction was,
what's a podcast?
Yeah, and then seeing you guys the second and third time, I'm thinking, okay, wait a minute, these guys right here, these guys are jumping off. These guys are really, really taking this whole thing to the next level. And I really, really believe in the 28 years I've been doing this, the last 3 years, something has happened in this industry as far as the service, where we're no longer looking at each other at a dog-eat-dog type situation. For the first time, guys are referring to each other as colleagues. Yeah. Like Ryan from Mr. Poolman over here. There's a young guy, his name is Jojo Hernandez. And when I saw you guys in Vegas in October, November, I had my guys there. And I think the show starts on a Tuesday or Wednesday and goes through Thursday or Friday or Saturday, whatever it is. But if you're really gung-ho, you can take some classes that start on Monday. But if you're really gung-ho, they have classes that start on Sunday, and end on Saturday. So you're there an entire week. So I get my guys there on Saturday so they can show up for the Sunday class. And this place is empty when you walk into the Mandalay Bay, because there's maybe 30, 40 people there taking Sunday classes. So they start at 8 o'clock. It's early. I get there at 7. I'm walking up an elevator. There's a guy there in the elevator. Start talking. Turns out he's a pool guy. He just started 5 months ago. Jojo Hernandez. And we start talking, and he says, hey, where's the registration booth? I said, oh, man, let me take you there, because I can tell you where it's at, but it's like a mile walk. It is all the way around. So, and I got to go there anyway, and I got some guys in the class. So it turns out he was going in the same class my guys were. And these are guys that have been doing work, with 2 to 5 years experience. In that class, you kind of needed that. Now, this guy's got 5 months, and he's going into this class. And just that 20-minute walk to the class of the registration, I got to talk to this guy, and this guy talking with me and just bouncing ideas off and seeing there's a young guy, like me when, back in the day, starting out right, going to these, APSP classes and doing, I'm like, wow, this is really impressive. And listening to his story and then giving him, he's asking some great questions, and he was just like blown away by the feedback I'm giving him. And then I realized, you know what? This guy deserves anything I could give him. I mean, there's been people all my career helping me out in this business. Why not pay it forward? Why not help this guy out in any way I can? And he's in San Bernardino County, city. So that's like 40, 50 miles from me. And I mean, I was like, he's not in my own backyard, but that didn't matter either. I thought, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to take this guy. And I told him, I said, look, if you ever need anything, anytime, you call me. So we've kept in touch this whole time. And every move he's made, he was going to buy a second route. But I said, nah, you know what? I would hold off on that. Start taking what you learned. You got bought 30 pools, master those, but then use some of these skill sets here and try and go out and get some pools. And now he's got 30 more, and this is a short time, and he didn't buy them. He's, getting them on referrals. He's out there hustling. And then I talked to him a few days ago before coming here, and just to check up with him. And he's like, hey, this has been the best thing ever. And it's like, blessing. My wife and I, we're lucky to have access to you. And I'm like, hey, it's the same here. I'm learning from you as well. You're a young guy, a new guy in the industry. You always learn something from somebody else. And he says, hey, so just to let you know, I'm paying it forward too. I'm okay, all right. Jojo, what do you got? So yeah, there's guys that are in the industry. So I'm coming up on my 1-year anniversary. There's guys that have been in it for 4 or 5 months, and they go to this pool. It's all algaed out, or they can't get this working. And I said, let me come over. I'll take a look at it. And he finds a crack in the pump that they can't see, that this is why you have this problem. So here, let me help you fix this, build a customer. And he gets him back on the feet and says, yeah, don't give up. It's a great business to be in, So this guy is already out doing the pay it forward thing. And I'm thinking, yeah, this is the timing in this industry. This is a whole new dawn where guys are reaching out to, within each other, the Instagram thing, your guys' thing. It's definitely something that everybody's, got access to, is the information. And why not make everybody great in this industry?
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? I mean, we're all the same, right? You guys are working as hard as I'm working, right?
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, why not do this thing right and, make sure that we're all in this together. And it's the pool industry itself is still an infancy industry. You look at architects. Architects don't trash each other. No, if an architect goes to a client and says, oh, you want this feature, that's outside my scope, but I have a colleague. I'll bring him in, and it's a referral. And they work together and they collaborate. Well, that's just normal. And a lot of other industries do that. Mm-hmm. But in this industry, for some reason, we just tear each other apart. And then when the customer's watching this process of selecting a new pool man, and they're going to bring their, 3 guys in and talk to them and the whole thing, the customer just looks at this and like, wow, look at this. You got 3 different guys, all dogging everyone else out, all talking trash. And basically, they're negotiating and doing the whole process for me. I just got to pick one of the 3. And I think that's all changing. And I think you guys are really, really instrumental in that. And so that was one of the big reasons to support you guys. It's just a no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. That was a phenomenal story, and really think that that's such an honorable thing to do, especially just being so busy with, a company that you've built up to its success. And, I think, you're leaving behind a legacy as well. I would think that it'd be a really cool feeling to have done so much in the industry for so long and be able to just give back and see a company have success. And, they look up to you, where it's like, man, because of you, like I was able to like move through this a little faster, and I didn't have to learn the hard way. I had to physically go out and get things done, but because of you, I was able to like get through this faster. And, my family is just thankful. You got kids, you got wives, and it's just that's got to be the coolest feeling. I know when we hear anything good like that, that motivates us to keep doing this, because the only way we get to that next level and enjoy the industry we're in is when we're out. If you see pool poles, you know what I mean? It's like people that ride a Volkswagen or something like that. They're honking at each other. They don't even know each other.
Right.
People that are on Harleys, they don't know each other, but it's a given that when you're passing, you wave. And that should be the same. That should be the same thing we have in our industry. When you see another fellow pool professional, you should wave at them. You stop to SEP, it should not be like a dark place. It should be in there. You should treat it like family, like we're in this together. There is that competition, no doubt about it. But, when you get done, with a baseball game and, professionals or football or something like that, they shake hands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like you're attacking each other during that game because it is a part of the game. But when you get done, it's like, hey, man, good stuff.
Mm-hmm. And there's more and more of that movement. APSB, that's now the Professional
Pool and Hot Tub Alliance.
Yeah. So when I first heard the hot tub part of it, I'm thinking, oh, man, so now we're going to have to work on hot tubs. And I thought, I don't want to work on hot tubs. But then my brother-in-law called me like that week, and he says, hey, I got something wrong with my hot tub. Man.
That was quick.
Dang, look at this. And then I went over there, I looked at it. I'm like, I don't know anything about this. I opened things up. I called the manufacturer the next day. And he's like, yeah, it's just like a pool. You start pulling things off. And when, that short finally doesn't short out, that's the thing that's wrong. And then I went back and I looked at it, and his ozone system had a leak. Pulled that out, and there goes the short. It was fixed. And I said, look, you got to get a new ozone system. Well, can you do that? No, I can't do that. And so, we did do that and put it in. But there's a group of guys in San Diego, and it's Javier, Ken, and Lupe.
Javier Payan. Yep. Javier Payan, right?
Yep, there you go. And these guys are great. So those are the main three guys in the chapter down there. But it's a fairly new chapter.
That's the one that Dustin's in too, right? Dustin Anderson?
Yep.
Yes, we just talked with him. We just spent the night at his house in San Diego. That's where we were at. And his episode's actually coming out on Monday.
Nice.
But yeah, he was telling us about this thing. Go ahead. You can keep talking about that, but that's the one he's in too with you, right?
Oh, it's an amazing. So I went there last month. So they have these meetings every other month. And they invited me down there. I came down there, 3-4 hour drive. It was well worth it. But to what you said, Greg, it actually has. There's this camaraderie because you have like plaster companies that have been in business for 30 years. And it's the same companies, that are rivals, they're in this group. But when in this group, it's for the betterment of the industry, and you see them shaking hands. And I thought that was awesome. And what these guys are doing is unbelievable. What's going on in that? They're taking everything. They're doing alliances with the California State Contractors Board and bringing them in to make sure our contracts are compliant and legal and all that. They're working with the local district attorney's office to do sting operations on unlicensed contractors. So they're involved in that. I mean, this is a good group right here. So I've never seen this really in this movement. Again, growing up, in our family, it was like, we had a pool builder competitor that lived right around the block from us. And that guy was our enemy because he's a competitor. And we never got to know him or his family. And he had kids our age and never really talked to him because that's the enemy, and I think all that's making a big change.
You have everything to gain and meeting people because you either find out that they're good people and you want to work with them, or you'll quickly find out that you need to keep your distance.
Right.
So, running your business, the way you do, Rich, not only takes a great owner, but also takes great employees. Can you share with us maybe, why that's important to you?
Yeah. My employees are the best guys, period. Without them, we wouldn't have the best customers. And it's really important to understand that the employees are first in that equation. And without them being first, again, you're not going to have the quality of clients. So these guys are out there doing it. They're making it happen. They're working hard. They're getting up early in the morning. They're usually at the office yard by 4:30 in the morning. Back by 2:30 or 4 o'clock sometimes on a late day. And I got a great group of guys. I got Joe, he's been with me the longest. He's my right-hand man. I got Adam. Adam's incredible. He's out there grinding it all day long. You got Ronnie. Ronnie's a rock star. He's out there. He's also a MMA guy.
That's cool.
So he's bringing a lot of discipline that he's gotten into what he does daily. Gets along with everybody. Everybody loves him. And then you got a few guys. You got a few newer guys. You got Ernie. Ernie's a fast learner. He's just out there absorbing everything, getting all the certifications, taking this on as more of a career than just a job. And we have Edgar. Edgar's been with me now for this year. He started back up with us in January. He's actually Joe's brother-in-law.
Okay.
And Joe's father, Lupe, used to work with us, and he's now retired. So that's kind of going back full circle. Lupe used to work for my father, and now he got two sons working together like, two fathers back in the day. So that's it's great. So they're everything. I mean, they're gonna make or break you. The success of the company. It's gonna ultimately come down to these guys. They're easily managed, and they take direction real well. And what these guys have also done for me is the whole myth of millennials, because they're all in that age. I mean, these guys are grinding it. They're working hard. And, the whole thing about millennials just, not working. I don't want to get my hands dirty, and I'd rather play video games and, eat those weird, toast things. That's all gone with these guys. These guys are out there, and they're taking it all serious, and they're doing everything, harder than I've ever seen anybody else from any other generation. So I'm real lucky and blessed to have these guys. And as a testament to that, we last year won the top 50 spot. We came at number 19 for the Pool and Spa Industry News.
Mm-hmm.
And that really has to do with our customers giving all the feedback and all the positive, reviews. And it was a really grueling process that we were vetted on that. And it was all customer feedback. And it was all done by an outside third-party company. And we got some incredible feedback from our customers, but a lot of it were feedbacks where each one of our guys was named by name and that. So that's the biggest compliment a customer can ever give me, is just them telling me, hey, when Ronnie gets here on Tuesday, can you have him check this out? Or when Joe's here on Wednesday, have him check out this. The customers, that they recognize the guy and the name, I know the guys are making that connection with the customer, and that's really important. So it's better than saying, hey, when I don't know the name of my guy, but, can you tell him blah, blah, blah. So they know the customers, and the customers know them, and it's great.
Yeah, it's very cool when the customer can call them by name, and I'm sure your guys can call them by their name too. They have built that relationship with their clients, and that's cool, and vice versa.
Yeah, it's that level of service that's important.
For sure. Well, there's been a lot of knowledge shared here today. Are there any kind of books or podcasts? And you mentioned Outliers, but anything else that you've gone through that you've helped you learn kind of some of the stuff you've talked about?
Yeah, I mean, just going way, way, way back. I mean, basic things like The Giving Tree. I mean, that book, it's a great book to reread and refresh on from time to time, the whole idea.
Is that the children's book?
Yeah, that's the one.
Nice.
And, I've read it to my son many times and get to read it to my nephews now. They're young. And it's just, some major life lessons in that, unconditional love and unconditional giving. And you realize, that's what, that really comes from mothers. And when I look at my mom and think back of all the years and everything she's done for my brothers and I, and, the example she gave us as far as the work ethic, it's incredible. And to this day, she's still giving.
Nice.
And it's great. So The Giving Tree is amazing. Customer for Life by Carl Sidwell. That was an early read. Got lucky on that one. Really good book to really, understand customer expectations and going above and beyond for customer service. About a guy in Texas that owns a car dealership and then starts a whole chain of other brands of cars and becomes like a mega dealership. But it's all based on giving the customer that above and beyond type service. Outliers, I mean, that's just going to be, it's a book that I'll keep reading over and over again. And podcast, I mean, these two guys from Arizona. I mean, it's you guys are my first experience to that, and I'm grateful. And like I said, it was just a real easy thing to hear you guys and recognize that you guys are definitely progressive. You're definitely doing something that's not being done, and it's authentic, it's genuine, and anybody listening to this should and would want to be a part of it. And anybody that can do anything to financially support this organization would be encouraged to do so, because think about it. You're sitting in your truck in traffic listening to this. You're out maybe tearing a filter down, sweeping the pool, what have you. But this is sinking in. This is stuff that is going to, I mean, it's like an exclusive, private, high-end seminar. And you're going to value, you're going to walk away. Something's going to make you better. I mean, every single one I've listened that you guys have done, I mean, every one of them walked away thinking, wow, okay, this is great. You know, I want to implement that. I want to, you know, build off of this. And so I'm real happy to support you guys.
Thank you, man. We appreciate that. You know,
Absolutely.
We want it to be something where everybody can really soak in and take a piece of it, because we've said it several times that everything might not be for you. You know, you may not want to run your business a certain way, but, you know, if you look at it where you pull a piece out of each episode where you're like, oh, that's gold, or I like that, that'll apply to my business, or, you know, because we're all in different climates and different places around the country and world, and, you know, it may not apply everything, but, you know, there are real good, like, business nuggets and real good, you know, pool nuggets here and there that, you know, apply to certain parts, and they're really, you know, that's what we're trying to do, provide an all-around experience that you can build your company the way you want to, but, you know, without making some of the same mistakes that experts have made.
I mean, you talk about business and pool nuggets and all that, that's great too, but I'll tell you one of the biggest impacts of listening to one of your episodes, it was, I forget the two guys' names, but it was the guys with the trailers, the purifying water, and their beginning statements, you know, and the one gentleman had mentioned about his son and being a single dad. I related to that. I'm listening like, wow, that's me. Mm-hmm. And then he says, you know, they went to Del Taco every Wednesday night and they never missed a Wednesday. And to this day, I think his son's 24 years old and he's still doing it. It's like, wow.
Right.
I mean, come on, that's incredible right there.
For sure.
So that's Father of the Year. I mean, that's above and beyond. So, you know, all kinds of nuggets and information, and, you know, we're all out there. And the thing about it is we're out there, most of us are by ourselves. You know, you're cleaning a pool, you're out there, it's just you in the water. And, you know, the camaraderie is just, you don't get that opportunity. So to listen to something like this and realize that these are guys just like me, that's unbelievable. So kudos to you guys. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys are going to do in the years to come.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it allows you to work on your business, you know, while you're working in it. You know, it's something that's not really accessible and hasn't been up to this point, you know, with something you can do. And that's why I always talk about Brett and his podcast made a huge difference for us back in the day. But it's just something, you know, allows you to, everybody's listening to some type of music or something out there in the field. You know, probably should just keep it in one ear. So
definitely, the customer's not. Hey.
Yeah, the customer's not calling at you. Or here in Arizona, we got those rattlesnakes you want to.
Oh yeah.
Kind of pay attention to.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, make some time for this. I mean, the music's good and all that, but I mean, this is for the soul, for the pool people. You know.
Yeah.
Pool guys and pool gals out there. This is plug into it.
Sure. Thank you. Where can people reach out to you? You know, if they'd like to get a hold of you or talk to you about some stuff. Website. And,
the website's company is Pure Swim, so it's pureswim.com. All the information's there. Website, we did that about 8 years ago, and use it for a tool for prospect customers if they call us up and say, hey, you know, check this out online, and a lot of detail there. But one of the biggest things when I designed it is I wanted a phone number right there, front and center.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate when, you know, you name it, you go to a website and you got to dig for that number, and it's contact us, and, you know, it's an email. So if you want my direct cell number, it's right there at the top of the page.
Nice. Very cool. Well, thank you again for joining us here and coming all the way from California, and thank you for all the support. We really appreciate it.
It's been an honor and a privilege. Thank you so much.
Thank you all for listening. We appreciate you giving us your time and your ear. If you're not following us on social media platforms yet, we are providing great content on there as well. So please check us out on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Our tag is Pool Chasers. If you're interested in helping support the podcast and get access to great bonus content, as well as an opportunity to record a bonus episode or even a full episode with us, you can go to patreon.com/Pool Chasers. That's patreon.com/Pool Chasers. And did you know that you can also subscribe to the podcast so that you get updated every time a new episode is released? So if you're not subscribed yet, please do so. And if you like what you hear, please take the time to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and all other major podcast platforms. Also, check out the Pool Chasers Facebook page. This is a place for like-minded pool professionals to ask questions, share knowledge, and come together as a community to help better the industry. Thank you all for the support. We truly appreciate it.
See you out there, Pool Chasers.